Welcome to the Schuylkill River Heritage Center. We are located in the historic building called the Foundry, which was once part of the Phoenix Iron and Steel Company. My name is Barbara Cohen. I'm president of our museum here, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the river, which is our first place of telling the story about Phoenixville and the river itself. We have a celebration of the Schuylkill River and also Phoenixville's place in the Schuylkill River. You walk in and you actually walk in the water, but you don't get your feet wet, coming up river from Philadelphia, and here is Phoenixville. It looks just like a thumb sticking into the Schuylkill River. Okay, coming upriver from Phoenixville, we have Spring City and Royersford and Pottstown, Birdsboro, and here as we make our way upriver is the city of Reading. And then along here, smaller places called Port Clinton and Hamburg. How about that? And all the way up here to this interactive exhibit where we can all learn about the many things made in places along the river. And here we are coming all the way up river to where it begins in the small town of Tamaqua, making its way also to Pottsville. There were many, many resources that were found that were brought down the river to make use of them. Coal, iron, textiles, all kinds of things. And we showcase all of these places along the Schuylkill River. Come upriver with me. And here we are in front of the mural that tells the story about all of these places that made the Schuylkill River such a valuable resource. By the way, a little bit of a sidebar. Way back before Pennsylvania ever existed, there was a Dutch explorer who was trying to find the Delaware River, which is the other river that borders Pennsylvania and New Jersey. But he got lost. And he found himself on the Schuylkill River, and that's the word that he gave it. K-I-L-L in Dutch means river, and S-C-H-U-Y-L means hidden. So the river was hidden because of all of the growth of the plants hiding his view of where he could find his way. But now we have found our way to this mural, which shows all of the places along the river that once made things. And if you want details, you only have to click on the screen and you can find out the story. Number one is a coal breaker up in northern Pennsylvania, northeastern Pennsylvania, and then you make your way along the river to various places. And here we have the industrial waterfront in Philadelphia. All the way down the river, each place has a story to tell. This is a brewery that was once in Norristown, the Adam Scheit Brewery. Because so much coal dust and coal was found upriver and brought to Philadelphia, where it was then shipped to New York and other places, so much coal dust was thrown into the river that the water became very dirty. And a lot of the immigrants who came to mine the coal and make the iron and steel along the waterway, they needed something to quench their thirst. And so there were 38 breweries along the Schuylkill River. The lager beer became very, very popular. Now the Schuylkill has been cleaned and it is one of 11 National Heritage Rivers. But each place along here tells its own story. Over here, this image is right where Valley Forge meets Route 23, and I bet you drive past there all the time. Well, This was a woolen mill, and what they made there were all the Army uniforms that the Union Army needed for the Civil War. So all along the Schuylkill River, there were resources that people used, and Phoenixville was one of the most important places along the river because of the iron ore that was found nearby and the water and the pressure of the water flowing from the French Creek into the Schuylkill River. It was the first place in the United States to make cut nails, making use of the iron ore. And here's a fact for you to remember. 1793, George Washington was still president, okay? And they were here making nails that those new settlers coming for all 13 colonies needed to build their houses. Later on in the 19th century, nails were made by machines. And so instead of being the Phoenix Nail Works, it became the Phoenix Iron Company. And this is one of the most important things that they invented and manufactured. It's called the Phoenix Column. It was wrought iron, not cast iron. That's a big deal because cast iron, if it's hit hard enough, it cracks. The wrought iron doesn't. And it was used for bridges and railroads and inside of buildings all across the United States. And they also made rails, and you'll see that in a moment. Can we look up and see the way in which they made the railroad tracks? You'll see images of the patterns that they used for making the tracks that the railroads needed. But the Phoenix Column was an extraordinarily popular, useful way of expanding the industrialization of the United States. And there are not only Phoenix columns across the United States and Canada and Mexico, Russia, Japan, Peru, even Indonesia have Phoenix columns in bridges and structures in those countries. As the 19th century progressed and the Phoenix column was so incredibly popular, it's even used inside the Washington Monument. And you'll make a trip here when we're open to be able to see how the Phoenix column helps to support the Washington Monument. One of the most unique things was the celebration of the centennial in Fairmount Park in 1876. And Samuel Reeves, the son of the owner, David Reeves, who patented and invented the Phoenix column, had a great idea for the 1876 centennial. This is a Phoenix column tower that he designed for the centennial. Taller than the pyramids in Egypt, taller than St. Peter's in Rome. It would have been amazing. But unfortunately, the city of Philadelphia did not have the funds to construct it, so it was never completed. But there was a man who came to the centennial from France. His name was Gustave Eiffel, and it has been documented that this Scientific American poster was on display at the centennial. And we like to think that Samuel Reeves's Phoenix Column Tower was Eiffel's inspiration for the tower that was built in Paris 10 years later. Okay. Here we are, and you see this bell. Why do we have this bell on display? Because the Reeves family, remember I mentioned Samuel Reeves, he invented and patented the Phoenix Column. But way before then, it was his dad, David Reeves, who had founded first the Nail Works and then the Phoenix Iron Company. But they were really good guys because they cared about all the people who came to what became Phoenixville to work and create the things that the railroads needed, as well as buildings. There was no school required in Pennsylvania early in the 19th century. No public school law that had to go to school every morning. But the Reeves family did was to build an octagonal schoolhouse. 8 sides, that's what octagon means. And each grade from 1 to 8 sat in front of its own window. And there was a bell in the steeple of the schoolhouse that actually rang every morning to call the children to school. Well, once upon a time, I was directing the Phoenixville Area Chamber of Commerce, and a gentleman walked in carrying this bell. He had saved it from 1949 when they had taken down the octagonal schoolhouse. And he gave me a beautiful compliment. He said, "You're the only one I trust to keep it safe and tell the story about the Reeves family having a place not only for their children to go to school, but the workers' children too." And that is why this bell is here. So all of you know that Phoenixville's roots and the Reeves family left a wonderful mark on our community by doing this. In talking about the Reeves family, they cared. They cared not only for the children have a place to go to school, but these are the days before you had insulation in your shoes, and they all wore leather boots. Well, the floors of the foundry and where they made the rails and the supplies and the Phoenix columns that were needed in the industry were very, very hot. And what we found when we were restoring the foundry building were these sandals. Every worker put on a pair of wooden sandals because wood doesn't transmit the heat. And this was a way, again, where the Reeves family was thinking about their workers. It was almost like a family. It didn't matter where you came from, what color you were, where you went to pray. Everyone could get a job at the Phoenix Iron Company and later the Phoenix Iron and Steel Company. So we saw the bell that was in the octagonal schoolhouse, and we saw the wooden sandals that protected the workers' feet. As you can see in this space, which we will tell more about the story in the second chapter, is a mural, a multicultural, multicolor, multi-gender mural that shows the employees of the Phoenix Iron and Steel Company. And on top there is a wonderful sentence, and that was actually a sign at the entrance to the Phoenix Steel Company, which said, "At Phoenix, it's the people that make the difference." And what we showcase here is not only the Schuylkill River, but also Phoenixville's place in the river. And we'd love to have you come to the restored historic foundry building, because that's another whole story too, and see the video that we show, or see all of the different Phoenix bridges and buildings around the United States that showcase what the Phoenix Iron and Steel Company did with its place along the Schuylkill River. We hope you enjoyed this virtual tour, and will join us again when we do a second chapter in this story.